And it says I'm live, so let's see what it does. Perfect. Okay. Sorry about that. A little bit of a delay. Just making sure I really am as live as it says. Good morning to everybody. This is 23 September 2021. And this is the live stream for today, for this week. Greetings to all of you who might be coming later. I know the first couple of minutes is a little slow. Technical difficulties plague this channel. Gee, I wonder why. YouTube, care to comment? And already comments. Squatch says that there's a protest on the White House lawn. That is not terribly surprising. Let's just put it that way. I was very startled to notice that I had a like before I even went live. So somebody out there is paying attention. I know Squatch is tuned in every live stream, all but one, I think. Somehow I don't think it was him. I got a feeling I might know who it was. Either way, let's get into it. This week was possibly, for legal purposes, for legacy purposes, the worst for Joe Biden so far. Yeah. Basically everything he's tried to do in the last 2 weeks, everything he's tried to do has been thoroughly destroyed, except the Afghan pullout. And now there's hearings on that in Congress. Oh, that's got to hurt. That is going to be his real legacy thing. Oh, I'm the president that got us out of Afghanistan. Just like Nixon was the president that got us out of Vietnam. I'm just saying. But moving on. Either way, this has been a shit week for him. And it's going to get worse. But that's not what I really want to talk about today. What I really want to talk about today is conspiracy theories. All right. If you do not believe that there are conspiracies out there, you're foolish. But not everything out there is a conspiracy. Start with the word conspiracy. It has a very specific definition. 2 or more people engaged in a criminal act. You and your buddy go to the bank. Your buddy comes out with a big bag full of money, says drive. You may or may not be guilty of conspiracy. It depends. Do you know he went to the bank to rob it? No? Well, you're off that hook. Versus, if you did know and you were the getaway driver and you were parked so as to make a quick, clean exit, yeah, now you are a conspiracist. You have committed conspiracy to rob a bank. Please do not conflate these two concepts. If you don't know what the other guy is doing, it's not conspiracy. Simple as that. Back when I was living in Sacramento, I may have assisted in a bank robbery. Some things about the way the guy came out of that bank were extremely attention-getting to me. Like, I never liked it. He never actually said he did something illegal. And as far as I know, the cops were never there. It was a next-door neighbor, so it'd be very difficult. But it always struck me the way he came out of the building was very strange, and I never liked it. for the record-ish. I suspect what he really did was he went in there and he cashed a fake check. I know this guy wasn't capable of robbing a bank. He wouldn't have even known which end of a gun goes bang. That brings me to my real casus belli for the week. There are people out there who are again raving about 9/11 conspiracy theories. I cannot express how much these people annoy the shit out of me. It's been 20 years, and there is still no useful evidence to prove any kind of demolitions or inside job or anything else. I can't even prove my pet conspiracy theory about 9/11, which was that Clinton let it happen on purpose to embarrass Bush. And yet these people are still swearing up one side and down the other that there was no plane strike, or at least that the second plane strike provably didn't happen. I'm sitting at home. I watched it live. And yet this didn't happen? Are you kidding? What planet do you live on? So, as you consider a conspiracy theory, first of all, always entertain the notion. It could be true. But once it's disproven, stop talking about it. A whole lot of what's going on right now with regards to Corona and BLM and Antifa and everything else all boils down to those hate mongers from 2001 who were living by the philosophy that sand can't sand knitters, because I can't say the real word on YouTube, can't fly planes. All right. Yeah, actually, they can fly planes. They did. And that happened. I'm going to lean into YouTube a little bit here. You allowed these crazy ass stories to go because they met a narrative. They were matching the story you wanted heard. I'm sorry, YouTube and Fascist Book and Twatter. You allowed these crazy stories to get promulgated because they met the narrative you wanted. And now that the crazy ass stories aren't meeting the narrative you wanted, all of a sudden you're shutting them down faster than we can say shut down. I'm putting this on you. Let me catch up with the chat for a second. Hey, Luke and Alpine. Cool. And then I'm going to go back to my rant. Okay, Squatch said, approved an open borders stop deportation protest. Ooh, really? Oh, that's very interesting. And yes, they changed the definition to suit the agenda faster than you can say it. Everybody, Squatch has a channel of his own, so give him a subscribe, because he's almost halfway to getting to go live from his phone, which is really, really a bad idea, bro. Just get a laptop. Amira tries to live from her phone, and it never, ever works out the way she wants it to. Oh. Okay. Some people have been commenting about my, or some people have been observing in my comments. My first comment of any live stream is not for your sake, it's for mine. To remind myself, reset the router. Make sure I have the coffee, make sure I have the Gatorade, make sure I have the tea, and to get my steel tube ready, which I didn't. This morning I was in such a hurry. I just came off a 12-hour nap. It's supposed to be a 1-hour nap, and I crashed for 12 hours. So I got the coffee ready. That's about it. All right, back to the rant. As you hear these conspiracy theories floating around, give it 5 minutes. At least get the idea, the gist of the idea. My favorite conspiracy theory is that Iran created the coronavirus and then framed China. I can make my prima facie case. I can't get past that point without help from outside sources. And unfortunately, that means the CIA. And the CIA is not going to help me under any circumstances. At least not right now. The same people, and I have one in mind, who's hawking the 9/11 inside job and demolition story, has outright accused me of, quote, cucking for China. Because I said Iran created the coronavirus and framed China. Seems legit. I can make my prima facie case. You can't even make your prima facie case, but you do have beautiful footage, video of no plane hitting second tower. Are you kidding me? Are you joking? Okay. 20 years and somebody can't fabricate that evidence? I don't think so, Tim. No, 12-hour nap sucked. Squatch, try Bluetooth. Mine is a Plantronics, and it seems to be working fine. Unless it's operator error, which it has been a couple times. Moving on. All right. Give the conspiracy 5 minutes of your life to at least hear their prima facie case. Oh, there's this video that shows that no plane struck the second tower. Okay, that's enough. I don't need any more. I saw it hit. What is your malfunction here? Versus, say, Iran created the coronavirus and framed China, and then dismissing it as cucking for China because you don't want to hear this theory? Yeah. Also, try not to be quite entirely like me. There's been a couple people that have come along, and me being used to people bashing it before they've even gotten past the first line, which is very often all the further I go. And a couple of people have come along and said, hey, can I see your evidence? Which there's a pretty good pile of it by now. And I just got pissy face and said, yeah, fuck you. You're not even serious. You don't care, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, try not to be like me. Doesn't matter how rude or condescending they might get later. For right now, just go ahead and say, yes, here is my evidence. All right. Once it's proven fake and not possible, not even conceptually possible, dismiss it and don't give it any more attention. One of the mistakes that Popular Mechanics made in the 9/11 conspiracy theories is they went on camera to debate the guys from Loose Change. And Loose Change, Mama Carey had said of George Duke Majan way the fuck back in, I think it was 83 or 84, you cannot argue with a liar. They'll just tell another lie. Oh, small flag on the play. I can't remember exactly how she said it because this is 1983 or 4, and that was 1983 or 4, and this is 2021. I was a little guy, and I didn't understand what was going on anyway. Now I'm a little bit older, and I understand the gist. Popular Mechanics made the mistake of debating the liars without the understanding that they're just going to tell another lie, and a bigger lie if they have to. Correction, a bigger lie if they can. That was a real mistake on their part, and I think by now they own it. Don't argue with a liar. They'll just tell a bigger lie. And unfortunately, that's what they did. Rather than focus on the evidence and where it actually points, they focused on the agendas. Two people of exactly opposite philosophies can want the exact same result for exactly opposite reasons. That happens all the time in business. It's part of business contract negotiation. Company A wants $10 million for their product. Company B does not want to spend $10 million, but they want the product. Without even compromising, Company B figures out a way to turn that $10 billion into $20 billion. Okay, great. They might just pay the $10 billion and Company A's got all the money they wanted. Good for them. They all came to exactly the same cross point of purposes for exactly opposite reasons. Company B is going to list in their ledger, yeah, we paid out $10 billion, we borrowed $5 million, but we're going to make $20 billion off of this when it all is said and done. Company A, they want to go out of business anyways. And now this product will be lost forever, or whatever the circumstance is. And they say, yeah, we lost out on $20 billion, but we got $10 billion we wanted in the meantime. 9/11 conspiracy theorists keep pointing out that there was some guy, I don't even know who this guy is. All I know is his last name is Silverstein. He took out a shit ton of insurance on World Trade Center. Yeah, okay, so? And like a week or two later is the attack. Again, okay, so? What about it? He didn't have anything to do with it happening. He just sat there and saw this was a big fat target. Well, we knew that already. Right? There had already been one attack that when it didn't succeed the way bin Laden wanted it to, he turned around and actually said, maybe next time we'll use a plane. I remember this from like 94-ish, maybe. I'm sitting there, I think I'm a senior in high school, and I see this on CNN, flag on the play. CNN back, first of all, it was HLN. Second of all, back then CNN wasn't a propaganda network. It was a legitimate news network. Second of all, it was HLN, not CNN. But anyway, I'm watching the reporter on HLN saying that bin Laden said something to the effect that next time we'll use a plane, and it showed video of him. This is the first time I can remember ever seeing video of Osama bin Laden. And the interpretation is next time we'll use a plane, and thinking, you can't get a plane, you stupid. And you can't fly it. Flag on the play. I used to be one of those people that said sand knitters can't fly planes. Fixed bayonets on 15 September 2001 verbally kicked me in the nuts when she said that to somebody who was standing there raging about how it was all the CIA. I never said that language out loud. I definitely thought it. I thought the concept was there's no way Afghans could ever, or somebody from Afghanistan could ever get or fly a plane. And I stand duly corrected for my racist mentality. I will never say something like that again. I will never think something like that again. I know better. You can say anything about me you want right now. I did it. I thought that, and I will never make that mistake again. Okay. I'm going to back up the chat a little bit because there's a lot that happened in the last few minutes. Gulch, I never heard anything like that, but I have heard GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out. And yeah, I'm really, really mad. This individual that I'm referring to, and I'm not going to name, I spent the last 2 weeks ranting about Building 7. I caught that. And yet accuses me of cucking for China because I said Iran did it. It's a whole lot of hypocrisy in just one little package. Boy, if you want to get me a subject for me to live stream about, piss me off. That's a good way, isn't it? Right. New name. Actually, I think I've seen this before. The Salt Laker says, remember Building 7. That was one of her topics. So let's do building number 7. First of all, whether building 2 was hit or not. Let's just go there. Let's pretend for the sake of argument that building 2 was never hit. Do we deny that it fell? Just go there for a second. Demolitions or something else. Anything else, literally. Building 2 was never hit. Okay, fine. Building 7 was not more than 1/3 the height of buildings 1 and 2. I happen to know this detail because I know something about the construction of Building 7. Back in 95 or 6, when me and Brent were not quite classmates, we were in the same program at Chest College. All right, he was a little bit ahead of me in the program, so he knew all the answers that I was seeking for. But anyway, we were also gamers. Yeah, actually, that's how we met. I hung around the gamers table. He hung around the gamers table. He found out I was playing one particular game. He let me know that, hey, he used to be a GM for that. We started talking. One of the things we did was we started working on some new material related to that game. And we based a whole ship, the design of a ship, on the same build theory as World Trade Center. Part of which was that they realized this building was too high to have an elevator go to every deck. So they had to put express elevators in every 90 decks. You go from 1 to 91, 91 to 121, 121 to whatever plus 90 is. Okay. And that's fine. But that's great. Whatever. We used that same design theory to break the ship up into manageable sections. You're talking about a 150 deck building that falls. How many tons is 150 decks, even without things like furniture and ladder wells, elevators? Just as a simple steel column tower. How many tons would we be talking about here? Whole lot. That's how many. They found pieces of World Trade Center as far as 6 blocks away. Buildings on the other side of 6th Avenue, I believe it was, were destroyed. That entire block, or at least half of that block, does not exist anymore because of the debris that fell. Okay, so let's have that. Let's just pretend, for the sake of argument, that World Trade Center 2 never got built. Okay, all right, let's pretend that for a second. But there was a building, and it was, let's say, 90 decks high. Let's say 100. Nice round number. All right? All that material coming down is not only going to blow away World Trade Center, but it's going to punch right throughout the other side and crush Building 7. It was not some forehand knowledge. It was not some psychic powers. It was simply somebody went up maybe to the top of World Trade Center 7, looked up, saw what was going on, and said, oh, fuck, we got to get out of here. This was no genius at work. Hell, I'm sitting at home. World Trade Center hasn't even fallen yet. The buildings are still on fire, but they haven't fallen yet. And I'm thinking, those are going to come down. Oh my God, that's going to be a mess. First of all, I was not thinking clearly. And second of all, I did not realize there were still people trapped in the building at that point. Matter of fact, I'm not sure when I became aware that people were trapped in the building. It just hadn't occurred to me yet. So yes, of course, World Trade 7 was destroyed. There was no avoiding it at this point. So thank you for bringing that up, Lakers. It was inevitable. All right, saying that the destruction of WT7 is proof of something is bullshit. It's absolute ridiculous bullshit. That brings up another thing. I believe it was not Loose Change, but somebody else. They got air samples, I believe, from World Trade Center. And in those samples was thermite, potassiate, silicate, something like that. A thermite product. Yeah. Like months afterwards. And remember, rescue operations were happening that same day. Hold that in mind. Months later, when rescue operations are long since over, now it's demolitions. Oh, you mean like thermite might have been used in? Of course there was thermite particles there. They were being used the same day. I've used thermite-based products myself, although only in training. All I had to do was cut through a 1-inch thick, or it's a 1-inch wide, 1/8-inch thick piece of steel. All right, all I had to do was show the DC-1 that, yes, I can actually use this piece of equipment to cut through metal. That's all he wanted. That's all he needed. That I'm not criminally incompetent and incapable of using I forgot what it's called now, but it's a big backpack-based cutting torch, just a cutting torch. That's all it can do. And I was capable of cutting that hole if there were guys trapped down in the engine room, that I could cut a hole for them to escape. So yeah, there's thermite all over the place. There's thermite in people's lungs by that point. What about it? Y'all notice how angry I get about the sand knitters can't fly planes comment. Little flag on the play. 15 September 2001. I can tell you exactly where I was. And if I gave you the clue, y'all could stop, say, oh, yeah, I know where I was too. I, at around 2100 hours, happened to be at O'Malley's Bar in Old Sacramento. Me, Brent, and his new fuck toy met for beers. This little Asian chick. I know, this is what he's banging this week. Okay. We met outside and, well, we went inside and we had a couple of beers. We went back outside. Me and the Asian chick smoked. She still does. I still do, but that's not the point here. We went outside. We got a cigarette. Brent didn't smoke. Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember. Why is he not watching our beer? Why is he coming out with us? But whatever. And there's this guy. As we were walking up, this, I don't know, 5'2" white guy with a mustache or a beard bigger than my face. And he actually was overweight, but looked like he worked a lot. He had a auto mechanic build. You know what I mean? He's standing out there. CIA hijacked the planes using MK Ultra or some stupid shit. I can't remember now. Anyway, we'd gone inside. We'd been in for like 30 minutes or so when me and the chick decided to go out and get a cigarette, and he's still going. He's ranting as hard as when we went in. We're listening to him talk. I'm about finished with my cigarette. She's about finished with hers. She drops that line. Everybody knows sand knitters can't fly planes. Flicks her cigarette out into the street. Walks her ass back in like she owned the place. I'm standing there in total shock. I'd never heard that kind of language in public before in my life. Just blown away. Whoa. You just said that? Okay. Flick my butt out into the street. We all go back in. We have a couple more beers, and about 10, 15 minutes later, the bouncer comes up and says, I have to ask you to leave. Yeah, I know what this is about. No problem. We got up, we left. We went back to my place. We had a few more beers and all in all good night. Next day, Brent and his little girlfriend went back to San Francisco. This really bothered me for a couple weeks. And I finally gave up and I called Brent up and said, you remember last Friday? Or not last Friday, week before last Friday? Oh, yeah, what about it? And I told me, we got kicked out of the bar and why? we got kicked out of the bar. He said, yeah. You hang around people like that? He said, what are you talking about? I reminded him of what she said. You hang around racists? And to this day, I remember he was laughing so hard that I'm pretty sure he peed his pants. I actually put the phone down for a moment because I can still hear him through the phone laughing. Pick it up, say, let me know when you're done, put it back down. And I guess that got through to him. I said, what? Right? He explained to me that this Chinese chick is actually Afghan, as in from Afghanistan. Matter of fact, she wasn't even a U.S. citizen at that point. She was supposed to be, but she wasn't. Some people fucked up very badly. She's watching the stream right now. That was the individual y'all come to know as Fix Bayonets. She'd just come off 6 years with the Marine Corps. Marines fucked up her citizenship status apparently really badly because she got her conditional release of service to switch over to the Coast Guard, which is how the two of them met. And I was sitting there the day she got sworn in as a U.S. citizen. She renouncing her Afghan citizenship and ties. Now she is an American, and that is it. That is the end of the discussion there. She was angry because this guy was saying that she was too stupid to know how to fly a plane. Yeah, to the best of my knowledge, Fix still is not a pilot and has maybe played Flight Simulator or seen it played. That's the closest to becoming a pilot she has ever become and will ever try to become. Oh, excuse me, guys. They're starting the sorting. I'll be right back. Ooh. All right. When they start sorting the product down below, it gets kind of noisy. Okay. Not the same thing, Squatch, I'm pretty sure. Ooh. Wait, what? Squatch said, never said proof of anything. It feels sketchy. Everything about it's sketchy. There is a whole lot of sketchy. And I don't know if you're talking about 9/11 or COVID or something else. I don't care. It doesn't matter. All of it's sketchy. And yeah, Gulch, that was my introduction to Fix Bayonets. Seeing Brent's new fuck toy and then hearing her drop that line. Like, whoa. I did not know that, Squatch. We have something in common there that I will talk to you about off stream. Anyway, yes, they can fly planes. I will never, ever again in my life make such a racist comment, except as a quote. I will never say something like that again. I will never, ever make that mistake of thinking that that could ever possibly be true again. That same kind of philosophy, sand knitters, getting YouTube, can't fly planes, is the reason why so many people are dismissing the Iran theory. And yet, I have the evidence piled up as best I can, up to and including, strangely enough, Business Insider and Wall Street Journal. Business Insider would have a vested interest in trying to hide this information. It involves a certain businessman and philanthropist who gave a lot of money to worthy causes that became very well remembered from last summer. You know who I'm talking about, and you know what I'm talking about now. And where some of his money came from. Well, without naming names, I happen to know that there's certain members of the United States government in their office, whether it's elected or appointed, actually doesn't matter, who have bought and sold actual slaves while in one case while holding that public office. Some of them came from Afghanistan. Some of them came from Russia. Some of them came from other parts of the world. Vietnam is unfortunately a pretty good target. And there's something to be said about the willingness to participate in this program, but there's also clearly something to be said about not actually willing participants. Flag on the play. The Russian and Vietnamese slaves that got sold in this market, which is actually here in the United States, may have been willing participants in their own enslavement. That was a thing. It still is. Where basically you're homeless, you have no chance of survival. Okay, well, if I run off and join these people who promise me work in the United States or Germany or France or wherever the hell they're headed to, I'll have a better life than this at least. Some of them clearly were not willing participants. And you can usually tell the willing participants from the unwilling participants because they don't speak the language, or whether they do or not. They don't speak the language of the country they're headed to. They're not willing participants. And their beautiful use of contract. You have to pay off the debt of getting you to United States, Germany, wherever, at like 2 cents an hour for the minus, by the way, housing and food. You have to pay for your housing and food out of your pay, and you're getting 2 cents an hour to begin with. You'll never, ever pay that debt off. This person is still in office. Me and Fix have both met her. Okay. Fix and me under very, very different circumstances. But even back when I met her, first of all, she was holding public office. And second of all, I just had this bad feeling. Don't talk to this bitch. There's something wrong with this woman. Okay. You guys are a little ahead of me on chat, so I got to catch up. It's funny to say. I assume he means the thing about people who can know how to knit. No, it's not funny to say. It's rude, it's disrespectful, it's vulgar, and I meant it that way. If you think that's the worst I can get, ask me later. Squatch said, my daughter calls me up And baby mama, you people, meaning, yeah, those, anyone, not you people. Yeah. She might be. She might be. um, how do I put this without blowing up YouTube? You do not have to be a particular race to hold sentiments towards people of other races, whether not your own or only one, with less than equal sentiments. Not to get too fine a point, but Fix, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to do this to you, honey. Fix Bayonets hates Afghans. She also hates women. She is the world's biggest misogynist I have ever met. Yeah, I think I got that right. She hates all women unless they somehow tickle her fancy. And then she loves them. As Al Bundy once put it, Bud, don't try to understand women. Women understand women, and they all hate each other. Oh, Alpine, if you only knew. I have a friend who will someday appear in a video, who knows a lot of the inside workings of how the actual slave trade works. And I'm referring to the slave trader that I was talking about earlier, the one who's in public office. Or correction, this individual is one of the slave traders' victims. And I said victims. I meant victims. One of these days, that individual and me are going to be in a video together. Maybe not a live stream. Maybe a live stream. I don't know. I'll figure that out later. You should hear us really go at it. We're absolutely horrible to each other. Flag on the play. Random happenstance. Me and Brent were actually stationed together for like 2 months. My first unit I was coming into my first unit as he was going out. He had his orders to his next unit. And actually, I vaguely under the impression that he asked to hold off for a couple of months because I was coming in. He knew me. He wanted to help ease my transition. Either that or he wanted to cause me trouble. Or both. Either way. Well, we were stationed together and we had license from one another to refer to each other in some terms you can't use on YouTube. A word that rhymes with knitter and a word that rhymes with kite is what we were allowed to call each other by each other. Well, we made the mistake of saying that on board one day. Somebody overheard it, reported it to the chief. Chief calls us up. He wants to know if there's a problem. No, what are you talking about? You two were overheard to call each other. Yeah, we've been calling each other that for years, Chief. Actually, first of all, that was Brent. Second of all, he told me, don't say anything. Chief, we've been calling each other that for years. Well, don't do it on board anymore. Aye, Chief. Get out of my sight. Okay. and we didn't do it on board anymore. It's just the way we talk to each other. And now me and this other individual that I will unleash that Kraken someday, still talk to each other in those terms. We just don't do it in a way and form that YouTube can do anything about. So you really want to hear two people going at it. Okay, Squatch says, I can't wait to get him on my show. I'm not sure who you're talking about, but if it's Brent, I'm sorry, that's not possible. He passed away a year ago, February. And not of coronavirus. Don't start on me, Fix. Brent passed away a year ago, February. A lung issue, but it was caused by ingesting malathion particles. So Brent is not an option. Alpine's pretty close, so yeah. Oh, okay, all right. I'm up to speed. No, it's not going to be Brent. I know that name. I do not know my benzo hell. You know who I'd like to see you interview is our George Washington. For those of you that have been asking, yes, I do that to piss off Susan. And I enjoy every second of it. All right. So, rant about conspiracies. Let me wrap that up. Because I'm at about 45 minutes. And it's going to take me another 30 minutes of getting pissed off and cycling like you guys notice I do. If somebody has a conspiracy theory, give it 5 seconds, 5 minutes. Think about it, and whatever it is you instinctively want to think, back away. Don't even allow yourself to think about that at all. Take 5 minutes and look at it and say, is there anything to this? And on 9/11, I was, pretty convinced that it was bin Laden. So as I'm walking up to this guy at O'Malley's, by the way, that was the first Friday after 9/11, so that tells you where you were. As I'm walking up to O'Malley's, this guy's ranting about the CIA. And of course, I'm walking up thinking, it was bin Laden. I'm hearing it, I'm thinking, let's give him the benefit of the doubt and not call him a liar here on the street, very least. I was not intellectually mature enough at the time to have given him the full benefit of the doubt. Today I am. I don't care how crazy your conspiracy theory is. If you can get my suspension of disbelief in your first sentence, I have to at least assume that there's something here. All right? Because usually people make their prima facie, your opening argument. You have to make your basic claim in your first sentence. This courtroom 101 for those of you with no legal experience or training. You have to tell the jury where this is going in that first sentence. My client cannot be guilty of murder, ladies and gentlemen, because he was in Los Angeles at the time of the murder. Or My client is not guilty of murder and the state has not made their case. Whatever. And then you go through your actual opening argument. You got to hit them with that first line to get their attention. Okay, that's fair. If you can at least suspend my disbelief in the first sentence, I'll follow it all the way to the end. I may disagree and I may think you're stupid, but I will follow it all the way to the end. If you cannot do that, you are intellectually dishonest and incapable of being trusted with any real intellectually difficult subjects. I might be able to trust you to, say, give an opinion on a county board of supervisors hearing and how it devolved into a chaotic mess. But I can't trust you. I sure as shit can't trust you with a conspiracy theory. And for those of you that are wondering, yeah, that was directly pointed at the individual talking about World Trade Center. She'll never see it, and that's a shame. But I'm telling you, honey, I can't trust you. All right. Squatch is saying George is a rehab and recovery turned travel and music vlogger. He's a good egg, total chav, likes tracksuits and visor type. I love it. Okay. I get my benzo hell, recovering addict. I'm going to assume my benzo hell is him talking about his addiction, or at least that's where it started. Okay. I think I'm a little bit calmer now, having gotten that off my chest. Having gotten that part of that off my chest. Second part of getting it off my chest. If you're so intellectually dishonest that somebody can present a new idea to you and you dismiss it before you've even gotten past that first sentence, again, you can't be trusted. And I hate to say it, there are certain people who are not occupying public office now that, and knowing what I know, we're all better off. Without getting too deep into the reads, there was a candidate for political office. I donated $100 to the campaign. $100. So what? Didn't even notice. Right? That probably didn't even pay for an hour's worth of donation processing costs. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. It was $100 to show support, nothing more. Yes, I believe in what you're saying, and I hope you win. This individual lost badly from what I'm seeing. There have been allegations of questionable reporting involved in this particular election. But knowing now what I know, this individual, not her, not winning, we're all better off. And we really are. You have to be exceptionally intellectually honest to hold a public office. You fuck yourself over in a private office, let's say the president of Enron, by dishonesty, at the end of the day, you fucked yourself. You may have fucked a lot of other people as well, but it's your money and you have to deal with the consequences thereof. When you're holding public office, and especially public money and public trust, and you're incapable of thinking beyond your nose, you're endangering public safety. And we are all better off if you don't hold that office. It's not that I want my $100 back so much as when we're better off me being out $100 and you not having that job. Oh. Oh, shit. I just read Squatch's comment. Oh. Wow. The only thing not there is crack. Nope, that's there too. I know a few former crack addicts, and they all say the same thing. Getting off of that requires you to be locked in a box 24/7 for about 6 months. Okay, all right. Flag on the play. Only one of them said that. And what she actually said was she was locked in a box for a year. And no, Squatch, I was not aware of that, but good for you. Honestly, and I mean that. I don't know what that's like. I've never been a drug addict. The closest I've ever become is I was on Chantix for a while, and that just turned me into a raging asshole. And one day I caught what I was turning into myself and said, I'm quitting the Chantix. That's it. I'm done. I'm not turning into that guy. And Tramadol. I was on Tramadol for a few weeks, and all it did was turn me into a fucking blithering idiot. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to turn my camera off for a second because the reason I took the Tramadol, I have a compressed cartilage here at the C2-3 vertebra. The only way I can get any relief for it is to pop my neck. I don't want you to see that. So how about that? That work, guys? Okay, good. That's better. Yes, you should definitely tell him that. Right down to the words Iron Man. Oh, I am so sorry about that, guys. Yes, all better. Thank you, Gulch. It really does hurt. So the closest to drug addict I've ever come is tramadol prescription, which it just made me feel stupid, and I was like, damn, it's not helping with the pain. Fuck this. And I threw it away. I remember I threw it in the trash. And I even knew I wasn't supposed to. And the Chantix, which that was a big mistake. And I had cough syrup with codeine prescription. I had a big bottle cough syrup with codeine. Oh, it's at least a pint. And it said, take as needed for this cold. And I took, I think, 3 doses. After that, I was like, no, I'm not touching this stuff anymore. Alpine Gulch says, well, you could have taught us how to crack our necks too. I'll tell you what, I will make that video. I will do it. But I stand on the statement that I will not be held responsible for you following that advice. Correction, I will tell you how I do it and demonstrate the techniques. And if you follow my advice, you do so on your own. This is not medical advice and blah, blah, blah. It's not pretty. I saw it once. Don't do it. The reason I turned my camera off, guys, this is the only way I can get any relief from the pain. And it's not even a long-term relief. One day when I was in Salem, I had to pop my neck. It was hurting that badly. And it was in public, and some guy got up and stormed off saying, that is the most disgusting thing I've ever heard. Well, I'm terribly sorry, sir, that my military service disgusts you so badly. By the way, this is about 10% of why I should be eligible for a 100% VA rating. Actually, it's 100 plus, because this plus the others, well over 100%. But moving on. Yeah, I try to avoid that. All right. So moving on to the next thing. Now that I think I'm done with my conspiracy rants. A little more practical matters to address. You all remember how I treated the BLM and Antifa riots from last summer. And I absolutely am not backing down from that. Right now, Australia is right on the cusp of actual open civil war. I think it would only take one really bad incident to take them over that line. And France, same thing. Well, riots and protests in France is just a day ending in Y. They haven't had a real civil war since 1780 something. And I'm pretty sure they aren't quite there yet. Australia, on the other hand, Australia is populated by people who, if you didn't learn to obey the state, you didn't breed. It's as simple as that. So, disobedience to the state is really kind of strange coming out of Australia, of all places. And yet, there's. Sorry about the noise. That guy is way, way lost. Moving on. Uh, so, when Australians are rioting, that's a really, really bad sign. There have been riots. There have been road blockages. There's been protests almost daily basis for the last 6 weeks. I am actually not calling on Australians to go into full-on rebellion. That's would be highly irresponsible of me. And it has been pointed out. Last summer's riots only made BLM look bad. Really, really bad, to the point where their sugar daddy, George Soros, has apparently been backing off some of his support. Now, maybe he's doing it a little more clandestinely. Maybe he's actually backed off. I don't know. But at the end of the day, his support is kind of withered up a little bit. Riots do make the rioters look bad, but there does come a point when things are literally so bad that is the last option. You don't have any other choices. The BLM riots were based on absolutely provably false narratives. What's going on in Australia right now is based on provably true narratives. Australia is walking a very fine line of justified and unjustified. I would ask them to back off of some of the crazy. Don't start the fights. Have the cameras everywhere. In the event that you can prove later who did start the fight, and don't start them. Don't block traffic. At least for now, don't block traffic. It's one thing for truckers to say, we're not delivering. We're just not going to deliver anymore until you back off these draconian measures. But blocking traffic is not okay. And I know for a fact that there's a couple of Australians that follow the channel a little bit. And I'm going to even timestamp this one for the one that I have very much in mind. Matter of fact, I think he's been in the chat before. Don't block traffic until you're at the point where you're ready to say this is a war and somebody is going to die. When you're at that point, that's one thing. Until then, please don't go there. I would say go to the ballot box, except what happened in the United States last year makes a lot of us wonder. That 9/11 conspiracy promoter, if she would be sticking to what happened last year, I would be totally there still. She's really doing a good job on talking about that subject, which is also why she's not on YouTube, which is why I'm not digging into it any further than that. When there's two absolutes in this universe that are both funny and true. One of them is a maxim, and I think I heard it from my maternal grandfather. My maternal grandmother was a Canadian. Um, I know I heard it on my mom's side. If you hate Canadians, that's okay. You're wrong. If Canadians hate you, that's okay. You're wrong. It's one of the few things I say on Viva Free's live stream that he can repeat. I have a potty mouth, in case you didn't know. And it's true. If you hate Canadians, that's okay. You're wrong. If Canadians hate you, that's okay. You're wrong. Canadians are genetically inclined to A, like everyone, and B, dislike nobody. If you can rise to such a standard of personal character that you don't like Canadians or they don't like you, that's okay. There's something wrong with you, and you need to deal with whatever your problem is. The other truth of the universe, well, besides that the French will protest and the protest will turn into a riot, Australians don't protest. They don't. And here's Australians not only protesting, but some of them have been violent protests with the police. Flag on the play. I have a personal theory that by the end of this fall, we're going to see some very, very interesting videos coming out of Australia about those protests. And there it is. Gulch is afraid to crack any part of her body unless you have some degree of experience in the field. Have a doctor do it or a chiropractor. To give you an idea, I had to have an osteologist, a bone doctor, licensed bone doctor who also practiced as a chiropractor. And when he's doing it, he has to pick one or the other. He can't mix techniques. But he had to put a strap on me for the second session. I think it was the second session. And it's a leveraging technique. Oh, God. That was the most pain I've ever felt in my life. He never could do it again. He was actually afraid to do it to me again. And I was afraid for him to do it again. But it worked. 90% of the problem was fixed in those 2 seconds. Squatch says, it's going to be open borders globalization protests today on White House lawn. Good. Nobody deserves it more than Joe. Especially the way he's... I have some psychological training. I am not a psychologist. A psychological and psychiatric... I am neither a psychologist nor a psychiatrist. I am a historian. I also have some legal training. I am not an attorney, nor am I a paralegal. If I was a psychologist, I would really wonder if Joe is suffering from, not dementia, but... oh, God damn it. The word was just in my mind, too. Schizophrenia. He seems to be... not schizophrenia, either. I apologize to the schizophrenics out there. Where you change your mind faster than you make it up. Not multiple personality disorder either. Fact of the matter is, I think he's just mentally incompetent, unable to handle the job, and the people around him know it and are exploiting it for all it's worth. And every time something that looked great on paper blows up in their face, they blame it on him. Well, it wasn't really my idea. It was the president's idea. To think otherwise would be to actually expect him to be a just outright fraudster who's changing his mind faster than he makes it up just to create chaos. Well, if that's what he is, then certain actions headed before the Senate today, earlier this week, need to be enacted upon. And if those cannot be acted upon, there is a third option. On a related note, articles of impeachment headed to the House floor this week. I don't think they're going to move anywhere. I think they're going to die on the House floor. And I said die on the House floor. It takes at least a majority to pass that, and it's not going to happen. Even if they do stall until midterms, it's not going to happen. I do not believe 26th Amendment will move anywhere until after the midterms, which means halfway through the current term, at which point I think Joe's just going to step down and cite health concerns. He will always have that honorific in his history, former president of the United States. And there will always be that little asterisk. Actually, two of them. One of them is should not have run, was not entirely there. And the other one, well, you know that one. What the hell? Oh, for fuck's sake. Guys, I am sorry. I added that stream too soon. Share screen. I am going to zip through the live stream. I forgot if you add it before it actually starts. Yeah. Okay, that's not working this time. So I'm just going to remove it from the stream entirely. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know. Well, I know what happened. It was operator error. And I don't have time to go back and read everything. Okay. Alpine Gulch made a comment about how Canadians treated Indians. It's true. Everywhere that people migrated, once they got to the new lands, they did everything they could to wipe away the prior inhabitants. This is a fact of history. It doesn't matter whose history you're talking about. So I'm going to pick on myself a little bit. Just a little bit. When the Hebrews were just migratory shepherds in roughly mid-upper Africa. That's telling you it goes back a ways. It's like 5,000 years-ish. They were They ended up in Egypt. Now, there's two stories to what happened. The Egyptians say that they were invaders, and they say they were enslaved. The Hebrews say they were enslaved. Which is the true story? Well, based on what would happen next, I believe the Hebrew story over the Egyptian story. The Egyptians themselves, their version of events was that King Ramses chased the invaders out. No, that's not how it works, Tim. Especially invaders who'd been there for a couple hundred years at that point. They left Egypt, and in the course of this time frame, took on the term Israelite. They then traveled roughly due east, and then eventually turned north and northeast into what is now Israel, a land that was occupied by the Canaanites. This is a very important detail that will come up again about 3,000 years later about who has a legitimate claim to that land. The Israelites completely wiped away the Canaanites. This was genocide long, long before the term came to be. We know that it happened. The kinds of things that Alpine Gulch was talking about in relationship to Canadian settlement goes back at least 5,000 years before. That's far from the only example. The Romans did it throughout Europe and North Africa. And they did it in Israel. The Persians did it throughout the Mediterranean and maybe a little bit up into Europe. The Greeks did it not as much because they were not as unified as one state. The British very much did it. The French did it. The Germans did it. Everybody has done it. Flag on the play. There's a film from about 20 years ago, I think it was, about the consequences of the Battle of Little Bighorn. Now, I've had that clip up on the channel from time to time, and I get in trouble for it, so fuck you, YouTube. I'm not putting it back up. So that you can make money off of putting ads on my channel. In it, the general who was sent to get revenge, pure vengeance, for the Battle of Little Bighorn, a man named George Miles, I think was his name, is meeting with Sitting Bull. They talk about the history of the Lakota's claim to the Black Hills, I believe it was. And in it, eventually General Miles says, the idea that the Indians were all peaceful and happy hippies is the greatest myth ever perpetuated on history. Or is it myth of history perpetuated on? Anyway, his exact words escape me at the moment. He's right. The Lakota came into that territory and massacred the Cheyenne. The Cheyenne come into that territory and massacred a previous people. Those people had massacred somebody else. It is that simple. And it will always be that simple. if humanity can get our shit together and spread out into the universe, chances are we will find an occupied planet, and we'll have to come up with some way of either not repeating history or repeating it with unusual vigor. I hope it's the former rather than the latter, because genocide is really a bad thing to commit. Luke says something about the Simpsons did it. I'm not sure which the Simpsons did. And Squatch says humans of all times, when two cultures meet, one is subsumed or assimilated. Subsumed means taken in as lesser equals. Assimilated means taken in after defeat as equals. There's two other options: enslaved or massacred. Gulch said that the Israelites would say it goes back even further in time. I can't even get that far back. And Squatch named the movie. And no, actually, Alpine Gulch said, so much great history on this channel. No, actually, there's not so much history as I would be capable of. And sometimes I beat myself up over that. But not usually. I'll let y'all in on a little secret. I became a historian because to become an effective Second Amendment advocate, I had to have some sort of degree. And it had to be something applicable to this Second Amendment. I was not smart enough to get into the law program. It is as simple as that. I could have passed the test, but the counselor put it to me very simply: the best you will ever be is a paralegal. And I had to sit there and take it because you know what? I knew he was right. He also told me that my chances of passing an engineering program was 0. And you know what? He didn't have to tell me that. I knew it. He was speaking with absolute authority. I'm sitting at his desk and I notice he's got a very interesting eagle sitting on his desk. It's about this big and it's silver. I had just come off of active duty with the Coast Guard, so I knew exactly what that was. It was either a United States Navy or Coast Guard captain's rank insignia, or an Air Force, Marine Corps, or Army colonel's insignia. With no question or doubt in my mind, this was an 06, U.S. military 06 insignia. So I asked him about it. He had been a captain in the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay, excuse me, a colonel in the Army Corps of Engineers. Oh, that's right, he had a Corps of Engineer emblem there too. That's how I knew to ask about that part. If he does not speak with absolute authority on somebody's ability as an engineer, then who does? It would never have occurred to me to question his authority on this subject. Me becoming an engineer was not an option. But there was a third option that most people don't realize. See, the Second Amendment, it wasn't just, these guys sitting around a table smoking pot mixed with tobacco and drinking mead. These people were sitting there saying, this has happened and that has happened and something else has happened. Maybe we should address those problems. Believe it or not, mandatory carry comes out of me spending 2 years wondering how to address the problem of the real world, address in the real world the problem of mass shootings. And Sandy Hook was a real turning point in that. There were previous turning points, but that was a moment when I really started to understand something's got to change this time for real. Little flag on the play so that YouTube does not strike this. Anybody that says Sandy Hook did not happen as described is either a fool or a liar. And there's more than one. I'm thinking of one particular name. If you're running a multi-million-dollar company and saying that it didn't really happen, you're not a fool. You didn't have anybody look into this? What kind of bullshit do you think you can pull on me? And for those of you that love that guy, I'm sorry, he's a liar. That third option to becoming a 2A advocate is to look back on how did they get here, which is also part of engineering and law. Look back on, okay, how did we get to this spot? How did we get to this ruling or this decision or this assessment of this thing? How is it that Ninth Circuit Court got to the point where they said, no, these magazine bans are not legal, and we're telling you, state of California, you can't do that. How is it that these engineers got to the idea, this bridge actually was poorly conceived, poorly designed, poorly executed, and what happened was inevitable. For those of you that might be curious, no, I'm referring to the Bay Bridge, the one that shouldn't have fallen during the 89 quake, and it did. Why? That's history. And the history of the Second Amendment has absolutely nothing to do with the revolution. Okay, it does. It's this much. There is so much more there that people don't look at. Hell, I didn't know about it myself until I was working on my degree. And then I heard about things like Cherval and Fort Defense. Try not to roll your eyes as hard as I did. The true history of Fort William Henry, which is the subject of the novel and films Last of the Mohicans. Obviously, Last of the Mohicans is a work of fiction that, to the best of my knowledge, only the background events are real. But the real story of what was going on at the time, that was fascinating study. That's how I got into history. And I cut it off at the AA level, mostly because I was homeless at the time. Or most of it, I was homeless. I shouldn't actually have been in school. I also used as a cheap excuse to get a student ID, which got me access to the gym, which got me access to the showers. Gulch says lots of Sitting Bull relatives and clan are still living in upper North America. I'm sure they are. And it does take history to understand politics. You can't understand how things came to pass without understanding how they came to pass. The 1989 earthquake left everybody dumbstruck. The bridge that should have fallen, Golden Gate, stood and stood hard. Like, there's this 4.5 Richter earthquake going on around me. So what? You think I'm impressed? That was the Golden Gate. The bridge that should have stood, Bay Bridge, collapsed. Very dramatically collapsed. We're lucky, I think it was only 2 people died on the Bay Bridge. And another infrastructure piece, the Nimitz Freeway, which should have stood against that like nothing happened. There were thousands of people on the Nimitz Freeway and only 2 survived. And it did take historians and engineers to go back over the history of the Nimitz Freeway and figure out why did it collapse so absolutely, completely, and devastatingly. Why did the Bay Bridge collapse at all? And why did the Golden Gate survive and there were people on it, walking on it, 0 loss of life, 0 major injuries, many, many minor injuries, but 0 major injuries. Squatch says CRT says it takes politics to understand history, and because I saw the comment, CRT is critical race theory. Alpine Gulch asked me if I've seen Into the West, and no, I've never heard of it. And Gulch says, flat like pancakes, not a roof of concrete like towers. I'm not exactly sure what she means by that. I'm going to assume she's talking about the Bay Bridge and the Nimitz Freeway. Nimitz Freeway was built to an earthquake standard set in the 1960s. A standard that was absolutely obsolete by the 80s. And to be perfectly blunt, you couldn't build the Nimitz Freeway in such a way as to be earthquake survivable. It just was not possible. What they did was they stacked 2 bridges on top of each other. Well, okay, that's fine. Built of concrete. That would have been okay for 1, but for 2 became a big problem. And reinforced with rebar, which was great, until A, the rebar failed, and B, the rebar was set at the 1960s level and not 1980s level. That was the reason why they didn't even bother to try to rebuild. I'm 89, so I think I'm in 8th grade when this happened. I know I was 7th or 8th grade. And I remember that Nimitz Freeway completely collapsing. I'm thinking, poor fools, they're going to rebuild it. And no, they didn't. Because engineers and historians told them If you rebuild this, you're going to have it happen all over again. And Sasquatch just said, and I'm going to read this exactly as he wrote it. Concrete cracks and the rebar rust, inevitable result. And he's right. Yes, you can build concrete to be earthquake resistant. You can do that. That is a thing. And it won't rust quickly at all if it's built correctly. But when you stacked one bridge on top of the other like they did, the result is absolutely and catastrophically inevitable. I said a moment ago, Nimitz Freeway had 2 survivors. When I said 2 survivors, I mean literally 2. There were people up on the upper deck, which should have been safe. They were killed as well. Now, this is not murder. It's not manslaughter. It's not even reckless endangerment. It was built to the best knowledge of the time. Problem is, the best knowledge of the time was absolutely inadequate. It wasn't crap, but it was completely inadequate. What happened was literally inevitable. Worse still is there were warning signs, but everybody ignored the warning signs because, oh, well, we patched that up. We fixed that. Well, that's been repaired. They thought everything was fine, and they were wrong. Okay. We got 20 minutes left. I need to do some wrap-ups. I spent basically an hour ranting about conspiracy theories. Give it one sentence, and if it can catch your attention, follow it up. If you are so intellectually dishonest you cannot follow up after one sentence without ever having heard anything else, for God's sakes, don't run for public office. Historians, legal experts, and engineers all have one thing in common. At the end of the day, if you are a historian, a legal expert, or an engineer, you have to be a little bit of a historian. If you are a historian, believe it or not, you have to be at least a little bit understanding of all of the other sciences. You have to at least have a comprehension of what the history of medicine is, which is why I could actually speak on COVID and its comparisons to the Black Plague with some degree of authority. And that's what I said early on. You have to have at least a basic concept of what physics and engineering are and why the Nimitz Freeway completely collapsed, even though it should have survived. Etc. Concrete can actually be waterproofed if it is built correctly. On the other hand, putting concrete at the top of a what is it, 40 deck building, building the upper 20 decks as concrete after I've already built the lower decks as steel because concrete is cheaper, is an example of being fucking stupid. And it'll happen soon enough. And a lot of people are going to die because a construction company was being cheap. Okay, 15 minutes. Great, good. Gonna discuss some get home bag issues. Keep it in behind me for the live streams. First of all, there's a book lying against it. Yeah, that's not part of the bag. That's just a reminder to everybody that I have actually read that book, which is The Prince by Machiavelli. I got a standing $10 reward for whoever can find me, $100 reward for anybody who can find me where he said the king or prince or any variation thereof must at times do things that, while distasteful, are necessary. It's there. You want to get the money? Tell me where it was. I have coming in any day now a smoke flare set. The smoke flares are actually very dangerous and difficult to work with. So I'm going to actually... I'm going to take them out of the box for the first time. Well, actually, I have to do that off camera. I'm going to take one out of the box as if it was the first time. So just play along and demonstrate how to make a case to safely carry it. It's not going to be as easy as it sounds. With that, I think I have the last piece that I want to demonstrate. And after that, I will make the bigger video. The things that must be in, the things that can be in, the things you really should leave out, with one exception. Gulch, email me. I want to see it. I've clearly missed something. Gulch claims that she found the quote. I'm very interested. It's from that book, right? The Prince. Yeah, so the get home bag. There's a bunch of shit in that bag that if I was any one of you, I would actually throw away. I bought it to demonstrate what it is and why it's an issue, and it shouldn't actually be there. There's really only one thing that's missing, and I can't find one under $20, but I can borrow one. Actually, I'll do that. I'll borrow one from Papa Carey. Email me, Gulch, please. There are certain things that people say you have to have, or you at least should have. No, you shouldn't have, and I will explain why. I'm going to say smoke flares for a general purpose get home bag, probably not worth your trouble. That big sleeping bag will actually be the tablecloth, for lack of a better word. That sleeping bag is way too big and heavy. And the thing that is perfectly sized does not exist anymore. A jacket, a big heavy parka for winter use. And you would carry it in summer as well, because even with very few exceptions, even the warmest and nicest places on earth at night can get very, very cold. And it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. There's only one thing that I really want, I can't find. But I can get an adequate analog. As a matter of fact, it's sitting there. The radio. It's too big and heavy, but it does have the solar panel on the back. A very, very light emergency weather radio and a separate solar system is what I really want. Squatch is arguing with me. I don't know. One flare for the primer, igniter, and the fuel. It's a lot of energy in a small package. It is. It sounds more like you're talking about a fire starting kit. And actually, I'm going to address that. A fire starting kit is part of my plan, but I have 4 in there. You don't need 4. Which one of the 4 you need is going to be highly dependent on how much time you can spend working on it. It's as simple as that. I'll let y'all in on the secret. I got a magnesium set. I've got a paper match set. I've got a striker on the side of a container set. I've got tinder set, which is totally separate subject. And I've got a Zippo lighter set. Which set do you take is something you have to figure out for yourself, and it will depend on how much time you can spend messing with your kit. If you can spend a day a month, the Zippo kit might actually be ideal for you. If you can't, you might have to break down and just get the magnesium kit because you do not have the time to work on it once a month. You put it together once and you never touch it again. Magnesium, go there. And there are situations where you cannot reasonably address. Squatch, send me an email with that so I'll remember to address it when I do that video. Okay, we got 10 minutes left. Speaking of poo-pooed conspiracy theories, and this one drives me insane. Same individual who's running on and on about 9/11 and thermites and no plane, and on about how Joe Biden is deliberately and maliciously importing hundreds of thousands of potential terrorists, is also poo-pooing, and I wish I could get her attention enough to get her in here to fight her once, which is kind of what I'm trying to do. Publicly shame you into coming and fighting me. But anyway, is publicly blasting him for bringing in hundreds of thousands of potential terrorists, and yet still saying that 9/17 is impossible and can never happen. Lady, pick a story and stick to it. 9/17 is my theory that there will be another massive terror attack, and that it will be a couple dozen to a few dozen teams of 2-man shooters. And it'll be mass shootings for the most part. There may be chemical weapons used as part of it. And COVID may have been the softening up phase that it went strangely awry somehow. Flag on the play. My guess, and this is based on historic precedent, COVID was the softening up. Make everybody sick so they can't go to work, so they can't go to school, so they can't all these other things, without realizing that part of the response would be mass lockdowns, which meant nobody was going to the bar. You could shoot them all up, and so what? You destroy bottles of gin, and that's about it. It actually backfired, and it might continue to backfire for a long time to come. Bars are opening up again, but not anything like pre-pandemic. So the targets that they were depending upon so much are empty. They're just empty. There won't be film at 11. There won't be mass panic because there's nobody there. It failed. It failed to have the desired effect. But if it was the 9017 in and of itself, an attempt to wipe out half of the world's population, it also failed in and of itself. My harping on that half the world's population is based on what happened when the Black Plague ravaged Europe. Over the course of 3 plagues, half of Europe was depopulated. Or half the population of Europe was wiped away. And that was just Europe. This had gotten worldwide. It could have been that much worse. It failed because we did the things we had to do to contain it. That was the 2 weeks to flatten the curve, which I knew back then was even 2 months. And then certain parties have exploited it since then. So, Australia is on the precipice of open civil war. Canada just had their elections, and Justin Trudeau held on to his seat, but by a much thinner margin than he thought he had. Remember what I said earlier about if Canadians hate you? Yeah. Well, Justin, it's time to start planning your retirement. I don't know, buy a lake house up in Saskatchewan or something where you can go fishing all day. Your bad management, your mismanagement, your malicious malmanagement of the crisis is why people don't like you. The people who are keeping you in power right now, best case scenario, they're looking at PPC and thinking that they're all racists, and that's the only reason PPC exists. And they're more afraid of becoming Nazi Germany than they are of you. It is that simple. And I predict that the next time Canada has regular elections, Mr. Trudeau will be losing his seat by a wide margin, especially since PPC picked up so many seats and now can demonstrate we're not racists. We're not going to become Nazi Germany. We're barely going to become pre-pandemic America. I think the worst thing for the leftists that PPC will do, I'm hoping, is enact some variation of the Second Amendment for Canada. That reminds me, I really do need to check and see how Viva Free did in his election. I really hope he won. I gave him $100 as super chats. The fact that I'm legally a Canadian citizen is totally separate. Okay, I'm going to hit this real quick. Alpine Gulch says, sounds like the 7-Day War. The Arab nations decided best time to attack was when all Israelis were home for a holy day. It backfired. It made the roads open. Okay, I'm going to dig into 7 Days War a little bit more carefully than I have in the past. And they knew where everyone was located to hail. The 7-Day War failed because basically half of Israel is part of the National Guard. A third, what is it, a quarter? Something like that. Is part of the full-time standing Army and Air Force and Navy and Marines. Israel has a separate Marine Corps. And everybody being home for a holy day didn't help any. That would have been the worst time to attack. Oh, I understand now. Gulch is trying to say because everybody was at home observing the holy day, it was a whole lot easier to find everybody, call them up, and tell them you've been recalled. Now it makes sense. My advocacy for restoring the militia system is vaguely based on the Israeli and Swiss models, only with a few minor variations. The Israeli and Swiss systems, you actually have to have the same gun that the military carries. Well, no, but you would have to have a firearm that is compatible with U.S. Army logistics system, which means right now 5.56. But you can have whatever 5.56 gun you want. You want a Keltec PLR 16? It's compatible. It meets the standard. Go for it. You want a AR-15? Great, good for you. Go for it. You want a pre-Gulf War SA-80? You're an idiot, but great, good for you. Go for it. And I'm going to close up with a little observation about Canada that was brought up by the chat. The United States and Canada are Siamese twins. There's a reason we disarmed our border. It's because we don't need to point guns at each other. Anything that hurts Canada hurts the United States, and most things that hurt the United States hurts Canada. Right? It really is as simple as that. We can't be split into two separate entities. There's just too much between us. The only thing that could happen that would change the situation is if the U.S. and Canada merged into one country, which would be nice and has been discussed in the past. The U.S. and Mexico are also Siamese twins. We're just a little more combative Siamese twins. We never truly gotten along that well. But if the U.S. were to annex Mexico under conditions that Mexicans were comfortable and acceptable towards, we wouldn't be Siamese twins anymore. We'd be one country. And we could very quickly and efficiently clean up those messes. The biggest mess is, of course, drug cartels and the fact that they are the de facto warlords of Mexico. A couple of B-52 strikes would end the warlord's reign. Yes, Luke says, haha, logistics system. I've never heard that before. Yeah, it's a very common term. As a matter of fact, I'm very surprised because is it UPS? I believe it's UPS. What can Brown do for you? Refers to themselves as a logistics company or logistics system. No, Gulch, I don't think that was propaganda. 9017 is coming. So carry everywhere you can go. And if you cannot carry a gun because you are one of the 13 categories, carry something else. The way I wrote Dataslav, obviously you're supposed to carry a gun. But if you cannot carry a gun, you can fall back to an alternative option. When I was homeless, legally, I could, but I could get an exemption if I wanted one. The same judge who's sitting there saying, yeah, okay, you really are homeless. I am giving you dispensation to not carry a gun, would then turn around and say, but you'll carry pepper spray, or you'll carry brass knuckles, or you'll carry something else. That's kind of the secret. Yes, okay, there are some people that cannot carry guns, but if you are such an awful, bad, or untrustworthy person that you cannot carry anything, you probably should be someplace where you can't hurt society anyway. Carry basically all of the time. I don't mean sleep with brass knuckles on like I do, because that's actually kind of ridiculous, and I know it's. But carry, always have something. Is there any other damage I can do today? New video on the Get Home bag is coming. And I'm going to start my bug out car in earnest videos here pretty soon. I do not believe in a bug out bag. You just cannot carry enough to truly bug out. But you can carry basically a very heavy get home bag in a vehicle that's equipped as a bug out car. Okay, we're 5 minutes over now. So keep calm. Mandatory carry on, and I will see you all next week.